Aligned. If there's one thing we like, it's alignment. Becomes centered.
Word of the day, alignment.
Word of the day.
Your hair looks very aligned.
Word of the day is that I need my haircut before I leave for my trip because this is a bird's nest. Are you embarrassed to do this with me today? Looking like this? You can be honest.
Not more than average.
Not more than usual. Yeah, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm okay. I can manage a middle of the road level of embarrassment.
Yeah. I mean, that's the story of our lives.
Yeah, that's par for the course. I did wear a collared shirt today though, so I hope that offsets the general disheveled nature of the upper half of my head.
Yeah. Well, I also wore a collared shirt.
North Face, outdoorsy, very technical.
Yeah. I like to wear a collar, but also be able to go hiking at the same time. You just got back from a hike.
I did just get back from a hike. I have a really awesome hike just out the front door here. You go up onto this big rock and overlook the ocean. It's good.
Sounds pretty
Health,
glorious.
wellness.
Nice.
Wellness is my priority. I like to just make sure that, sound mind, sound body, sound soul, so I can handle these podcast recordings.
Yeah. I'm sure you're super prepared. I'm sure you were meditating on your hike for this episode.
I was meditating a lot on
questions.
it. I tripped over a lot of stuff because I was meditating so hard. I was so dialed. I was in the zone. I was in the zone.
My talk so I'm doing, this is you're interviewing me kind of thing today, or
yeah. Welcome to
we can make this your topic if you want.
Welcome to your not TED Talk. Well, so actually, I'm excited for this one because, as I'm sure everybody noticed and felt the lack of presence, I was not at Juicy. So we were going to talk a little bit today about some of the stuff that you shared at Juicy.
No,
and since
I didn't share this at Juicy.
Oh, you didn't share this at Juicy.
Your lack of presence was felt, but this is something I talked about recently. Just I want to say last week for a GWA panel, a virtual panel discussion.
That's my bad. I didn't meditate on that part of it.
Yeah, you got to meditate harder next time while you're hiking, I think.
Mismeditated.
Yeah, clearly.
I mismeditated. So the topic at hand, from what I understand here, is something that I see a lot of actually lately. Seems like a really hot topic. So I'm interested to hear about it. It's e-commerce, I believe, right?
Yeah. So how do you get more people to transact on your website for things like bookable space and ancillary revenue primarily?
Well, and so I guess like one question I have on this front is like, is this something that you see as lacking often for co-working businesses? Like, is this something where there's a big opportunity to do it and it's maybe underutilized, or like what's kind of the lay of the land, maybe to level set here?
Yeah, I mean, it's come a long way, especially in the recent years. Historically, though, it's been you could buy virtual plans because you used a tool. I think you work with, I think it's iPostal1. I don't know if they have an e-commerce platform to that.
That's a good question. I'm going to probably have to edit this part out because I can't answer that efficiently.
Well, either way, usually, historically, people have transacted with virtuals using one of these platforms, DaVinci, whatever. And so that was kind of the most you were going to e-com transact with. And then occasionally someone else would innovate and allow, you to purchase co-working passes and so on and so forth. But it's come a long way. Historically, everything else, including meeting rooms, has been done by contacting someone. They talk to you, and then then you do the transaction on the back end or when they arrive and whatever else. And so over the years, recently, there's more tools that are out there that help people do that. And so what I'm discovering now is, not all the tools are made equally, and not all of them are super great from a user experience perspective or a data perspective, but they're getting better, and there's some good stuff out there. So now there's more people buying meeting rooms directly on the website, virtual plans directly on the website, co-working day passes, office day, office for a day, daily office passes, and other revenue sources as well. So we're seeing more and more of that. And as that becomes more transactable online, meaning they don't have to talk to someone, but they can if they want, I'm finding that that's really able to ramp up pretty significantly. So
yeah, well, I guess by having those things in place, you're kind of reducing the barriers A, reducing the barriers for people to make those purchases. B, you're reducing the amount of manual processes and touch points for your team, and you're allowing them to redistribute their efforts elsewhere. And I guess thinking from a marketing perspective, maybe it's easier, more streamlined, and more systemized to gain data from leads or customers. Like if somebody's a one-time meeting room booker, you're able to gather that information and a little bit more efficiently. Is that kind of like the three-pronged benefits, or what would you say?
I can't remember all the prongs you just said, but yeah, generally that's the prong. I mean, the main reason is you sell more. You sell more, right? So the less friction there is, and the more you make that experience easy, the more likely people are to transact, and then you can increase your revenues quite substantially, and therefore profit, right? If meeting rooms are a high margin area, even though you're maybe not making as much as your offices, if it's all going to the bottom line, then, and you're operating at say 20% profit, and you increase it's 5% in sales, you've just basically added a quarter to your profit margin. So it can be hugely beneficial to make it easy for people to buy online, assuming you have the capacity and you're not going to disrupt the member experience, and you have the staff and so on to support that and make it a good experience for people. It's a huge opportunity to increase profit incrementally without having some more offices. So
yeah. And so is this, I feel like when it comes to technical things like this, and again, I missed your GWA panel, so I'm just firing questions at you, but I guess, is it for operators or for, business owners? It seems technical. Is it a challenging thing to set up? Does it have to be, I don't want to deviate too far from, your materials, but
I mean, it's not. So a lot of the co-working management software today allow you to do this in some form. So whether you're using, Census, Office R&D, ERD, like all the different tools, they all offer something in this regard. The question is, can you track sales, right? So sometimes these folks let you transact and add your credit card and so on and so forth, but you can't attribute those sales back to Google. So you can't run ads to it, or at least you can't do it without clarity on the return on ad spend. And so that's kind of what you want to be looking for is the tool that I'm choosing to manage my co-working software, does it offer this ability to track, integrate Google Analytics and Google Ads, Google Tag Manager, basically. Mm-hmm. So you have views onto how many people clicked the button, how many people bought or didn't complete the purchase, and then where they came from originally, and then potentially retargeting people. We'll get into the details, but retargeting people based on whether they completed the purchase or not. So showing ads to people, and other offers based on their behavior in the shopping cart.
Yeah, the retargeting thing is spooky. I definitely find more and more now, like anything on Instagram, wherever it might be, if you look at one thing or engage with one thing, or seemingly even say one word in the proximity of your device, all of a sudden you're getting a ton of ads for them, which is a wild thing.
Well, just on that note, have I ever told you the wigwam story?
No, I don't think so.
So get your phone ready. So we had a book that had a wigwam in it. It was a kid's book, and we were reading it to our kids. And literally, so that that thing where you say something and then you're seeing the ads. It's happened for us with kilts before, which felt oddly specific considering we just talked about kilts for some reason.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't ask me why we're talking about kilts. I'm Irish, so that may have something to do with it. But yeah. So we were reading a book. It had wigwams in it, and then literally the next day I got an ad from Wayfair on Instagram offering wigwams. A wigwam that you could buy, which is essentially kind of like a teepee. It's like I think it's originally a Native American, home of some kind, and it just looks a little different. And but I was like, there's no way they pegged me as a wigwam guy. Like I didn't really even use that terminology, and right after we said it out loud. So for a long time, I'm like, that's one of those weird conspiracies where you're talking to your friends and then you suddenly see an ad. So what I looked at is what apps do I own on my phone that have microphone enabled? So this is where you put your tinfoil hat on. Facebook and Instagram didn't have microphone enabled, but WhatsApp did, because you usually use that for calls and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I disabled that one, and I've stopped getting ads based on the things I talk about with my friends. So because they're all owned by Meta, so they'll never admit this. It's probably illegal. Who knows? I would not, doubt for a second that Mark Zuckerberg would use such methods.
Yeah,
and others.
Well, we have Alexas in our house as well, because I got really nerded out on the smart lights all throughout the house, but they're all controlled by Alexa, and I'm like, who knows what she's listening to? Probably listening right now.
I unplugged that.
clocking my data. One thing I will say with the retargeting that still kind of drives me a little bit nuts is that there's no recognition of when you've actually made a purchase. Like for instance, we had to go get our wedding bands made for the wedding, and like, so
coming up.
obviously we got retargeted for the rings, and I was getting bombarded by this local shop here, and then we actually went and bought the rings. So it's done now, and they're still retargeting me, and I'm like, there should be some sort of trigger here where, like if you're listening to me say I need a ring and where I want to buy it from or whatever, like there should be some way that you can know, like, hey, that's already done, transaction's completed. Let's stop wasting our ad dollars on these guys.
Yeah, they can. They don't always, right? Like you may look on your phone at that company and that ring, and then complete the transaction elsewhere on your, say, computer, and maybe the cookies are not quite syncing up. But I've seen that happen over and over again. Sometimes it's a fault of the ads manager that they don't remove that audience of people who purchase from that list, so we won't get into the technical weeds of advertising any further, but it is really valuable. So to answer your question, most of these platforms today will let you sell basically anything. There are virtual specific platforms, and then there's also stuff that manages people's co-working operations on the back end, like we mentioned. So if you're the one you're using, if the software you're using does not have the ability to track these conversions, I recommend using a tool called flexspace.ai, and they take a percentage of your transaction, or I don't know exactly their pricing model today, but they'll essentially sit on top of any platform you're using and allow you to sell. And it gives you a really good, clean, fast user experience that is intended to help people convert, so conversion rate optimized experience. And so you can bring people from your website over into their platform, and it lives on a subdomain on your site if that's what you choose. And then people can buy and then check out. And then what it does is it allows you to put in your own Google Tag Manager throughout the shopping experience. It'll fire off events in Google that allow us as the technical marketers to see when people visited a page, went to the checkout page, when they completed purchase, how much revenue was generated from that purchase and from subsequent purchases within a window, and send that back to Google. And that means we're able to then match that up to say, okay, here's how many people came from ads, and here's how many people came from other sources, and here's how much revenue is directly attributable to that particular channel. And so it's so whether the software you're using has this function or not, you want something with a good user experience, and ideally with the ability to implement the Google Tag Manager, which is basically a house for any scripts you want to put into it. And it does send all that revenue data, e-commerce data, back to Google. And that allows you, the benefit of that is you can now spend money not as blindly and track what's called ROAS, return on ad spend. So he literally says you spent $500 on ads this month for these services, and you got $1,500 back. That's a 3 times ROAS. That would be a great scenario, in which case you keep spending money, right? You keep leaning into that if you're profitably acquiring customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess in addition to the retargeting and things like that, if you're able to get enough information, you can do abandoned cart email sequences and things like that, leaning into the content side of things. So you're able to take that and reuse it in other ways to keep people in your funnel, even if they haven't checked out or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So like tools like FlexSpace that sit on top, they're not a co-working backend management software. They sit on top of whatever you're using. They actually have a feature. This isn't an ad for them, by the way. This isn't sponsored. If you're listening,
this week's sponsor.
Yeah, we'd like you to sponsor this podcast. Yeah.
If you're watching,
please sponsor the podcast. Yeah. Okay. Back to our regular schedule. So, what were we saying? So yeah, what were we saying?
We were just talking about, retargeting. We were talking about being able to do.
So they have an add-on feature that allows you to send automated emails that you design. So this would be your wheelhouse, Taylor. Is like, what do you write and when and what order? But so they have a system that will do that for you. So you want to, but so that's a trickier one because usually it means capturing emails early enough in the process, either to re-engage them, and so every platform is going to be different in terms of when they collect emails and information. But even if you don't have that, or even if you don't use that tool, you could potentially do this manually if they actually added their email addresses. You can send it to your CRM, whether it's ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, whatever. And then some folks like Taylor would help you, or myself would help you send out a drip automation that's like, hey, you've booked our meeting room. How was it? Please leave us a review. And here's a coupon to come back for you next time. And there's various little things you can do, but FlexSpace has a built-in functionality like that. So it makes it pretty simple.
Yeah.
So email's great for retargeting. Yeah. Super valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so obviously missed your GWA. What else will we be covering here for people? I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about the value of e-commerce, why you should have it, how you can set it up. We've, established that it's not maybe as complicated as it might seem on the face of it. So what else do people need to know?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, checking in with first of all, we're moving into the co-working world is also known as the flexible office world, and so it's more flexible than traditional office space. And so we live in a world where people want to transact without having to talk to humans. They want to just research, see their options, explore it, see all the information, and then make a purchase at 9 p.m. at night for the next day or whatever. So we live in a time where that's the behavior people are learning to expect in other areas. And so the co-working world is unique because it provides a better experience to people looking for office and co-working, but it also provides more flexibility and convenience and accessibility to those things. So we want to be thinking, how do we incorporate more e-commerce functionality onto our site? What I prefer to do is to list out all the different services you have, everything from team suites to private offices to dedicated desk, co-working, meeting rooms, day offices, virtual offices, and all the different individual meeting rooms, so that people can really shop not just meeting rooms as a category, but meeting room called the whatever meeting room, and the like giving them a name, and they can actually shop and go, okay, I want this 4-person meeting room. Let's click on that link. That'll take me into a flex space or a Yardi or an Office R&D, whatever, and then that's where it'll handle it. So we want to be thinking, how do we allow people to transact as easily as possible if your model supports it? If your business, if that sounds like it's going to derail your business, you don't have a lot of staff, maybe have them contact you, but yeah, so that's the first mindset is
you can do that on a really granular basis too, right? Like as you're saying, it's not just book a meeting room. You're able to browse specific meeting rooms, how many people, like price per hour, that kind of stuff. You're able to find the exact one that you want and book it.
Yeah. And some people, historically, what I've done as well is sometimes if you do have a virtual tour on your site, right? Let's say you've used the 360 tour and you can walk around the entire site. Like there's pros and cons of doing that, by the way, which we're not going to get into today. But let's say you did have one of those. You can actually set up that virtual tour, park the person's starting point in the actual meeting room. And what it does, it lets people pan around the room, see what it's really like, and maybe even kind of virtually walk out of the room to see, like, is this right at the end of a hallway next to the restroom, or is this right near the front door? Like, because a lot of times people are meeting, there's a bit of a status component, like we're doing a sales conversation, a training, so on and so forth. So you really want to show people, like, when they come in, this is the entire experience leading up to the meeting room, which makes it even more convenient and more easy to see, is this going to be right for me or not? So if you've got a great experience from door to meeting room, you may want to think about putting a virtual embed for that product, for that each specific meeting room, to let people either look just around the room and see the whole thing, or to see where it is in context of the rest of your floor.
Yeah, that's such an important thing too, because I think that really is one of the big selling points for co-working spaces is if you're a solopreneur or a small business, but you're able to be in this incredible space, it reflects well on your brand. So that extends to the meeting room booking process. If you're bringing people into that space, that's going to be a reflection of your brand. You want to make sure that you're able to find the right one, find the one that makes you look good, right?
Yeah, if you're booking a meeting with people and you're not a member, or even if you are, there's a huge, just like all the rest of office and co-working, like there's a huge identity factor, right? Like you obviously wear collared shirts, so that says something about who you are, and the cool glasses and the stash. I mean, every little thing we do has some identity factor.
The stash is kind of questionable, to be honest. I'm actually glad that the microphone sits here because it covers.
We can just see the wings popping out.
It's okay from a distance. It's not so cool when you're close up.
It's okay. I think you should keep it because it complements the soul patch and the little. Anyway, I digress.
I'll get really personal here. The reason that I like this is because I inherited a really soft jawline from my dad, and this at least gives me some sort of facial shape. But this doesn't work without the stash. So, to your point, it's a branding thing for me.
Yeah. I think you really tied it together with what little material you had to work with. You made it work. But yeah, so meeting rooms are huge, and all of it is a huge status symbol. And by the way, if you're not able to see Taylor's stash, this would be your incentive now to go into youtube.com/@coworking marketing, and you can see us chatting in real time. And sometimes we share screens and so on and so forth. So definitely subscribe to the channel over there. Anyway, so it's a big status thing. So making sure the images are really good. Airbnb had a whole study that showed, like, when you use professional quality photos, bookings went up like dramatically, and therefore profits and revenues for the owner significantly went up. So needless to say, the photos need to be good. But yeah, so really about merchandising things. And, this is kind of a caveat. It's not quite e-commerce related, but it's on the same page. and I didn't get into this in the GWA conference, but this is where I'm headed currently with clients, is if you have team suites, large suites that are, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 plus people, where they maybe have interior offices or interior meeting rooms within a contained area. Maybe there's a kitchen, maybe there's not. Rather than saying we have team suites, why not say, hey, like, you want to see the team suites at this location, click here, and then actually break down and show all the individual units that you have with some photos and stuff, and really make those shoppable as well. Talk about the size, the square footage, the benefits, the features. We want to be in a world where, as the rest of commercial real estate says, hey, we have this kind of big office, contact us for information. You want to be like, here's exactly, it's like when you go shopping for a car, you might research online, Volkswagen or whatever, they have, okay, maybe there's a, whatever there, an Atlas. I want to know, like, you have a 2022 model or 2024 model. This one's black, this one's gray. These ones have these things, these specs. Like, I want to do as much shopping as I can before I go and talk to a human. And obviously there's trade-offs to that. Some people are more like, we've got a great product, we're not going to tell you what we got. You got to talk to our salespeople. Or strategically, you can say, no, we're going to make this all available, which helps brokers do a bit of work on the back end to see, okay, these folks have a few suites that I can see on their site are available, and they can begin to help show that to their clients and make it a better shopping experience. So this stuff, the productization of your products, doesn't need to only be bookable meeting rooms and so forth. It can also be like your, $20, $30, $40,000 per month suite, where you break them out and have a really nice section for each one. So
yeah, well, having those, having all that available helps people self-qualify before they get in touch, right? That way you're not, for lack of a better term, you're maybe weeding out some tire kickers by making all this information readily available on your website, letting people do their own research to self-qualify, to educate themselves. And then by the time they actually get in touch with you, there's some level of intent, because they've already been able to vet the product, vet the space, vet the pricing, do their comparisons, all those kind of things. And then you hear from them and they're kind of ready to have a real conversation.
Yeah. I mean, so some people might hear that and go, well, I'd rather have the lead and then let them talk to me so I can, maybe figure something out with them. Mm-hmm. The alternative way to look at it, though, is that you may actually get more leads, more qualified leads, in the sense that, well, first of all, I go to your page, it says you have team suites, but I can't really see any. And then you go, and then, so maybe I'll reach out later, and I go in, I don't. Whereas if you show, like, hey, we have this product, it's for sale, people on the internet can see it, you're seeing it. So there's going to be a natural sense of urgency, because you're like, well, like, this looks like an amazing product, and the starting price seems like exactly what we need. I should reach out sooner than later, because someone else is going to swoop this.
Yeah. It's currently available, but it may not be soon.
Yeah. Or maybe you were thinking one thing and then so then you're like, wow, that's actually really good, and maybe they wouldn't have seen that otherwise, so they didn't reach out. So you may end up getting more buyers. It also positions you to brokers and positions you to the markets you're in. This is a big kind of digression, but it does kind of say, hey, not only do we have these suites, this is one of our core capabilities, and we actually merchandise them and we show them all there, so you can make informed decisions, show them to your clients, and then come talk to us. So I think it's super valuable. So that's an e-commerce mindset, but the general principle is merchandising every single service you have, and not just saying we have meeting rooms or we have event space. Like, break them out and show what particular things you have. You don't have to go into all the details about every available private office you have. It's probably not smart, but more so the big and the small stuff. Here's package A, B, and C for our virtuals. Here's meeting room 1, 2, and 3. We have these suites and we have these other services. Come talk to us. Yeah, it makes it easy. Yeah.
And so the distinction here is, if you have more turnkey products like virtual, like meeting rooms, like event space, you want to make those immediately bookable, so people can just do it right then and there, whenever it's convenient to them. On the flip side of that coin, you want to productize your higher ticket products like team suites or whatever it might be. You're not going to have those set up necessarily as an e-commerce buy now, but right. It allows you to kind of to convey all that essential information to people so they can self-qualify and get in touch. And I guess with the sales team too, I mean, if you've ever talked to anybody in sales, nothing's more frustrating than having to have, basic conversations with people who aren't maybe are fit or aren't really interested. So at least having this on there makes it easier. Even if it's going through your sales team, it at least makes your sales team's job a little bit easier, a little bit more effective.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a believer, right? So this is strategy, right? So the question is, do you want to hold it all back and hope that you got the goods and they got to come to you so you can tell them what you have? But yeah, I'm a big believer that an educated buyer is a happy buyer. So like I want to educate my buyers as much as I can. If you go to my website on Everspaces, it literally breaks down exactly all of my services, exactly how they work, literally the price of everything. And so like I've done that because I've done this for so long that I've really refined my offerings for different segments. But so just whatever you can do to kind of show like educate your buyer in as much detail as you can. There's always a balance here, right? Of how much detail is valuable, how much is overwhelming or makes people not convert. Those are the trade-offs. So it's really your philosophy. I happen to be a philosophy major, but I do approach it in like, should I make this convenient and flexible, or should I, like Equinox doesn't work hard to make things super easy and flexible, the high end kind of gym. So if you're a very super premium brand, you may not go this route, but I think you'd still benefit from it.
And I guess there's probably something to be said too for like the data shows that the flex industry is growing and that there's a massive transition happening in the office industry in general. And I guess there's probably something to be said for, as more flex spaces become available, how do you distinguish yourself from, the other location down the street or the other brand down the street? And I guess the productization is going to be a pretty important differentiating factor as the industry grows, as more options become available, and as people are really trying to figure out what's right for them. I imagine if you're looking at Space A and Space B, Space A has productized team suites with all the information that you could need, and Space B, barring it being an ultra premium brand, doesn't. You're probably going to gravitate towards the one where you have a better picture of what that service actually looks like, instead of having to go through extra hoops to learn more, right?
Yeah. So people think about this. They often think high-end things shouldn't be productized, but if you go and try to buy a condo in pre-development, they break down, here are the number of suites we have that are corner suite using this footprint, and here's, I think you bought one or two in the past. And so it's the same idea. They're productizing it down. They're not like, we have 2-bedroom condos. They're saying like, no, on floor 6, 8, 9, and 10, we have this corner one with the extra space and access to the whatever, right? There's all the
floor
details.
Plan, features, price per square foot, all those things that you could possibly want to know.
If you're trying to sell something, make it evident what you're trying to sell. You're also like a watch guy, right? And like, do you want to know that someone sells, an Omega watch, or do you want to know that they sell this model, this age, this type, this color, this whatever,
this case material, this movement, and especially if you're a nerd, I'm sure it's the same with the cameras. You want the specs. I want to know the specs. I don't want to just know the camera. I want to know the specs. I don't want to know your
cameras. I want to know you got this particular type, because people are particular, especially as the price goes up a little bit more. And I think when, and this goes for everything, low end and high end, but I think more I have to kind of promote this idea of high end productization or merchandising. But like, if you, let's say you put it out there and then you get fewer leads, well, they weren't going to buy those anyway. You've just educated them to show you, frankly, what you have. So if they don't like what you have and then they don't reach out, you didn't lose a lead, really. You lost someone who wouldn't have bought from you anyway. If you've done a good job of merchandising your product and they looked at it, assessed it, thought about it, internalized it, because a lot of buying happens in the gut and they want to think on things without pressure. No one likes to go into a store and feel pressured by the salesperson, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's just, you haven't really lost anything in my opinion. And I think it's only going to help position you as someone who does this kind of thing regularly, has good products to show, and can put them out there. That's kind of my take.
Yeah, and I guess the kind of overarching theme here is really, like, we're talking about e-commerce. We're talking on a granular level, but I think one of the things that you said that really stuck with me is embracing or adopting an e-commerce mindset. Right? It's not just thinking about the actual actionable items. It's more about how you put everything out there for people with an e-commerce mindset. So for me, the big thing that stuck with me is that, like, it's not just little actions that you take. It's a mindset that you embrace and implement across your business in order to help the sales process, help generate better leads, more qualified leads.
Yeah.
And another thing that I noticed that's completely off topic here, but I've noticed it in myself as I watch these recordings back, and I think it's a really Canadian thing, where we always go right at the end of a sentence.
Do we?
Like before, yeah, I don't know if you picked up on that, but I realized when I'm talking to friends and stuff, there's a lot of that. I was just, I was saying something to you before and I said, you got to think about it from this perspective, right? And I'm like, why do we do that? Why do I do that?
Are you just, is it me?
No, I did it. And I realized it about myself. And I was like, that's really Canadian. I don't think I've ever spoken with like a US colleague who ends a sentence with right.
I feel like that's something we have to check this with our friends, but yeah, I think that's, I think that's also an American thing,
You think
right?
so? Right?
Right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I know we say a, and you
Could be,
West
eh?
Coasters say hey instead of a, which is a whole other
It's a whole
nuance
other
of
can.
our Canadian lingos.
It's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
But I also realized something earlier that I was laughing at in my head, and I was realizing that like whether we have a really detailed script for episode or outline for episodes or not, I've realized that when I try to segue a question to you on a topic, I do it the same way if there's no outline as there is if I'm trying to follow an outline. It's always like, so on that
How about
note,
that
then
next thing?
what about that next topic that you're trying to cover? Doesn't matter whether there's a script or not. I do the same thing, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. But anyway, I digress. Yeah. So I really like this whole idea of the e-commerce mindset. Is there anything else that people should know? Is there anything
Yeah,
that we're
lots of
leaving
stuff.
out here? Yeah.
Lots of stuff. See, you can tell Taylor didn't actually read the outline. He was on his hike. His just head was in the clouds.
I don't
I
want to throw
wrote a whole
anybody.
outline for him.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here, but I didn't get an outline.
Well, yeah,
I'm
an
winging.
outline was provided very
I'm
late.
winging this.
Yeah, you're doing great. All right,
Thank
there's
you.
a few things, right? So
Yeah.
number one is
Right.
how do you get traffic to the website? And so I think we want to be optimizing your site for SEO. We want to be having e-commerce enabled. And I think if you can track conversions and ROAS, return on ad spend, and ROI using Google Tag Manager as an embed in the system, and you have a good ads person that can help you with this stuff. If you don't, you can always reach out. But then you can actually ramp up your spend on marketing and advertising, and so paid is a really profitable way to acquire customers. And a lot of people haven't figured this stuff out. So there's still kind of a window where because people are not as competitive on terms like meeting rooms and virtuals and stuff. Maybe virtuals would be an exception. It's quite competitive, but even them, you can still very profitably acquire new accounts, new clients, new customers. So that's that. And so we've talked about, how do you improve the conversions? Well, good images, really breaking down and merchandising each individual service, sometimes adding live chat to the page as well. And so people can ask questions right on the page, can work really well if you can resource and staff that. So yeah, generally, yeah.
On the ads front, I was going to say as well, especially with meeting rooms and things like that and event space. I was talking to Ruben at Spacefully because we were putting together an article about this topic, but he was saying that what they've noticed is that there's always seasonal dips in meeting rooms and event space bookings and things like that. And so we were putting together content that was talking about, how can you capitalize on those seasonal dips with those services. So even from an ads perspective, it's like not just how you run ads to that service in normal times, but are there things you can do to tweak the way you approach your advertising to capitalize on seasonality and things like that, which I found really interesting. I wouldn't have probably thought of that without him, but
yeah. I mean, there's definitely that. Like around the holidays, a lot more teams will kind of meet up, get together, but also just like the way people are working is changing. Coming into the office as a team, but then working from home or working remotely is a very common use case. And just on that note, by the way, some people, I mean, a lot of teams are doing this thing where you're allowed to work from home, but every now and then they bring people into a co-working space. If you have unused suites, another way I've been kind of packaging this is saying is a team collaboration space. So if you have like a large area that's normally you haven't sold yet, that's normally for say 20 people, turning that into a team collaboration space and making that one of the products in your site allows you to like position it as like, hey, got like 20, 30 people you're trying to get together, come book your meetings with us. And we have that big room for you.
Yeah.
It's just a very popular use case these days.
It's not unused space. It's a different use case for the space.
Yeah, totally. It's not like just a suite that you have to buy and rent forever. It's a place you can come in and do meetings from, which is awesome. Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the different ways, obviously, SEO, social media, promoting stuff. You can do promos. Sometimes we'll sell like bundles. So like, get 3 meeting rooms for the price of, or get like 5 meeting room hours for the price of 3, or various other things. First month free on certain, co-working memberships and so forth. So promos can really work. Events, partnerships, like outdoor signage, make sure it's on your sandwich boards that are outside, co-working, like office-based co-working meeting rooms. Like meeting rooms is a bigger and bigger thing. Another tactic that's worked well for me is having meeting rooms be right there in the primary navigation. So you have all services and then meeting rooms as its own category because it's a fairly big industry. So don't bury that stuff on a location page necessarily.
Yeah. Interesting one too. The sandwich boards, like the outdoor physical signage, is an interesting one. Is that like, do you find that effective? I guess because we work in such a digital world these
Yeah.
days that I don't give too much thought to the actual physical signage on a space for when people are walking past or driving
Yeah.
past or whatever.
No, it's like huge. It's huge. So physical signage, posters work also very well if you have sanctioned poster boards. Even in my community, local restaurants, libraries, cafes, they'll let you post billboard like things. Some of them, coffee shops may not want to try to promote you, but there's a few things that you can pin up something for, and just making sure like that if I'm walking by and I only have 2 seconds to look at your thing, that it's clear that there's co-working office-based meeting rooms, and then you can get into the nuances of your brand. Those things work really, really well. We had a past mutual client who did great work with posters around the city, and posters have worked on me before as a consumer as well.
Yeah, and another one, like it doesn't fall necessarily within my content realm, but it is something that I've thought of probably because of my PR brain, is like, how can you create partnerships with local coffee shops? Like, how they say like coffee shops typically don't want people spending 4 hours in there working. They don't want to be a workspace. They want to churn people out. They want to get you in for a coffee, sit for 20 minutes and then take off and be on your way. And I've always thought like, there's got to be some sort of, partnership that you could do with a local coffee shop where they, promote your space close by. They maybe give out a free day pass. In exchange, maybe you promote that coffee shop to your members, or I don't know, whatever. But
You put their coffee in your space. Yeah.
Stock their coffee in there. Yeah.
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 Those are all valid things, and you can give them printed cards that they can, if they refer someone to you, they get maybe there's a promo code on it, and you can give them like a finder's fee or a commission equal to about 1 month of one booking or whatever, 1 month of rent. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do there.
QR code to the e-commerce platform.
Yeah, exactly. QR codes are huge for that. So, I think sponsorships, like, often schools have occasions where they need to meet or teachers need to do stuff. So like building partnerships with schools, it's, partnerships are huge, but it's work. So you got to build those relationships, and that's where people usually go, whoa, I didn't know we were going to actually have to do work here. So it's tricky, but it's really, hotels are another great one where they don't always have enough meeting space. So having your cards on the front desk or building those relationships work really well also.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a million things. It's, but yeah, e-commerce mindset. What else are we missing here? Anything else that we should cover off?
Yeah, no, I think just generally in terms of, we were talking before about being able to track return on investment, generally speaking, if these ancillary revenues represent say 10 or 15% of your business, and you spend money in ads and you have a way to track this stuff, try spending 10 or 15% on selling bookable space, meeting rooms, day passes, virtuals, that kind of thing. And that can just be a nice way to experiment, especially if you can track the ROI. Even if you can't, it might be worth just kind of throwing a bit of money at it and looking at things like how many clicks, how many visits, how many leads people inquired about these things. And then in terms of cost per acquisition, what I usually recommend people look for is acquiring new accounts, if you will, companies or people using your space for about either 1 month's rent or 1 to 2 months rent, but ideally closer to 1 than 2. So if it's a co-working pass, you acquire them for about 1 month's worth of fees, or about 1 or 2 bookings. So usually if your average booking is $90 or $100, ideally you're acquiring new meeting room accounts, clients, customers for $100 roughly. Maybe 2 if you think that most people stay or come back on average 10 times in the first year or 5 times. You might push that a little higher, but just in terms of figuring out your math, like take a little piece of your budget, put it toward these things, a little piece of your attention and your effort and your energy, put it toward these things, and then look for a ROAS, especially if you're using tools that allow you to track these things. Look for a ROAS of about one times transaction. So you're getting your revenue back roughly at the same speed that you're putting out your marketing spend in that direction. And that can be a really helpful kind of mindset. But long-term ROAS, return on ad spend, should be 5 or 10 times ideally. So if you do acquire that meeting room booking, ideally they come back 5 times minimum, or maybe 10 or maybe more. And you just never know. So virtual revenues are very sticky. Meeting rooms, people do use the space a lot and often do become members later on. You can also offer, this is more related to getting people in the door, but you can also offer like first time free or first time incentives kind of thing to book a meeting room for cheap the first time, 50% off your first booking with promo code X, and you can put that there on your website somewhere. Must be the first booking though. You put those caveats in. Yeah, and there's lots of ways as well in terms of advertising. It's usually Google where people are searching for the thing. Could also be Facebook or Meta or Instagram. If you say meeting room close to your phone, and then I'm just kidding.
It's funny how like
people.
I feel like social ads for co-working are super polarizing. I've seen it work really, really well. I had a former client, and they got so much traction from social ads, and I've heard other operators say like it completely does not work for us. Like Facebook ads, super hit or miss. But yeah, I've seen some people have real success with that.
Yeah, it depends on the type of customer, right? If you're going after individuals, especially, and you're selling meeting rooms, day passes, or meeting rooms, co-working, that kind of thing, they work the best. You can also be on Craigslist. You can be on Facebook Marketplace. Like these platforms do produce all the co-working directories.
Is Kijiji American too, or is that only Canadian? Just Canadian?
Canadian. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I have seen Craigslist is a surprising lead generator. It's wild.
Yeah, and you can put a little promo code in there to attract people and say, whatever, like, book your first meeting room and save 50% or whatever, and then you can track it back to Craigslist or wherever, Facebook Marketplace. Same thing with offices, by the way. But yeah, no, all these things add up, and I know we threw like a lot of stuff at you, but the key thing here is pick a platform, ideally that has the ability to track conversions and has a good user experience. It's low friction, right? The user experience element of the whole checkout process is super important. And then it's carve out a little bit of your ad budget and see what you get.
I'm curious on that too. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here. Is there anything that people should look out for as far as the user experience goes? Because I'm sure like everybody has shopped online for something or another, and I'm sure that most people have had a really seamless e-commerce experience, and then they've also had a really terrible e-commerce experience, which may have made them abandon the transaction early. So in the realm of co-working, is there anything that may hinder that user experience, or anything that you can think about to make sure that that's streamlined?
I mean, one is ideally you can tweak it so it reflects your brand, so it feels kind of native to your company, so it's not complete contrast against what you're trying to do, especially if you have nicer brand identity. Two is speed. The thing has to be fast or it's not going to convert. People are going to get tired and bored. Some people are on mobile phones and internet might not be great. Three is the mobile component. It has to look great on mobile, and if it doesn't, you're going to suffer. A lot is happening on mobile.
Yeah.
And people do research on mobile and then sometimes convert on desktop, but that's a thing. And yeah, generally it can't be overwhelming. Ideally, it's easy to pick a time functionally on your phone or on your computer and have the time, whatever, be clear, and not have too many steps. Like sometimes some platforms will say like, I want 1 to 2 p.m. on the 14th. And then you go to the next step and they go, oh, that's not available. You got to go back or something. And it's like making it easy to choose the time and on the front end, really important. So I would say just try the whole transaction process and see, is it smooth? And if not, is it clunky anywhere? And then work on fixing that. And honestly, like having live chat embedded in these experiences or whatever or a phone number or something that really easy for people to get help if they need it. Yeah. Super important but that's a separate kind of issue. And the last one probably is the ability to add like promos or save 20% when you book for a full day, or like little call outs. This is another thing FlexSpace does that some other ones allow you to do, but some don't. But call outs saying like, get your first booking 50% off, or first month, or whatever, like 20% when you book for half day or more. Those things can really help you a lot.
Give us a call, FlexSpace.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're ready. We're waiting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the gist. We talked a lot about this on the GWA webinar as well. If you want to watch that, I'll put a link in the show notes as well, so you can go and watch. It was Eyal from FlexSpace and Kevin Pretty from AdventureX and Office Evolution, and myself and Jamie Russo was the host of the panel discussion. So we'll put that in there as well. You can go and watch that whole talk so you get more than just my perspective, but we talked about a lot of the same things, and there was just a little more to it. So go watch that. And I don't think I have any other links for you, but if you're not subscribe to our little mailing list here, which we actually have to send emails, Taylor. We're getting
I
people
know.
it's opting into our resources.
I'll build a little content strategy for that. I've been really invested in the distribution strategy so far.
You've been very good at that. Well, email is a distribution channel, but you've been very strong on social.
We're good on social. We'll get the email sorted out, and we'll start sending you guys good stuff. Soon, I promise.
But the way you do that is go to coworking.marketing. That's the website /resources, and you can opt into that. You'll get you get resources whenever we have them with these podcasts. So we get the marketing management system that I use. You'll get the KPI system, and then the new thing that's dropping on Monday, I guess by the time you've watched this, it's already out. Is AI? Is how does Taylor use multi-step prompting to get good results from content marketing that meets the brand tone, style, voice criteria, and doesn't sound like AI too much.
Yeah.
So you go to coworking.marketing/resources. You'll see a box, type in your email. You'll get access to a Google Doc, and we'll just keep adding all the resources that we talk about on this show. So that's probably the best place to do it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, this was awesome. This was very insightful for me. So I appreciate the 2 cents. I'm sure everybody else will too.
Likewise. All right. Well, thanks for this, and get back to your hiking, and we'll see you in the next episode. If we don't talk before your I don't know, you will talk before you.
We've got one more pod before I leave.
Okay.
So
cool.
Then I'll be back with a tan and a ring. So
yeah, nice.
Very, very exciting stuff.
And the mustache still is going to stay there, right?
Yeah, a little bit lighter. The most important thing is the tan. The ring is cool too, and the wedding.
Yeah, the ring's not bad.
Yeah, it'll do. All right,
Cool.
We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.